Dr. Sarah Chen never imagined her xenobiology expertise would land her in the most awkward situation of her career. The Galactic Council's first human representative stood frozen in the medical bay of the starship Harmony, staring at the 7-foot-tall crystalline being that had just asked the most inappropriate question possible. Zixathera, the Quellian chief medical officer, tilted their translucent head with genuine scientific curiosity. Their forearms gestured toward the examination table where Sarah had been receiving her mandatory health screening for deep space travel. The question hung in the air like a toxic gas leak. "I beg your pardon," Sarah managed, her voice cracking slightly. She pulled the medical gown tighter around herself, grateful that at least some things remained covered. "Your reproductive organ," Zixathera repeated matter-of-factly, their crystalline features reflecting the medical bay's harsh lighting. "When I conducted the physical examination, it exhibited an unusual physiological response. The tissue became engorged with blood, increased in size, and showed heightened sensitivity. This reaction is not documented in any human medical literature we possess." Sarah's face burned with embarrassment. She had hoped that humanity's first official contact with the galactic community would involve discussions of trade agreements, cultural exchange, or technological advancement. Instead, she found herself explaining human sexuality to an alien who approached the topic with the clinical detachment of someone dissecting a lab specimen. That's a normal human response," she stammered, searching for professional language. "It's called arousal. It happens when certain nerve endings are stimulated." Zixathera's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign Sarah had learned indicated deep concentration. "Arousal? This term does not translate properly. Are you indicating a state of alertness? Aggression, perhaps?" The irony wasn't lost on Sarah that she, a xenobiologist who had spent years studying alien physiology, was now on the receiving end of such scrutiny. She had published papers on the mating rituals of 12 different species, but explaining human sexuality to an actual alien proved far more challenging than academic theory. "No, not alertness," Sarah said, taking a deep breath and shifting into her professional persona. "In humans, physical touch can trigger a biological response related to reproduction. Our nervous system is wired to respond to certain stimuli with increased blood flow to reproductive organs." The Quellian's crystalline body shifted, internal lights pulsing in what Sarah recognized as their species' equivalent of raising an eyebrow. "Reproduction requires stimulation? How inefficient. Quellians simply decide to reproduce and our bodies comply. There's no need for this arousal state." "It's not just about reproduction," Sarah explained, feeling like she was giving the galaxy's most uncomfortable biology lecture. "For humans, physical intimacy serves multiple purposes. It strengthens pair bonds, reduces stress, provides pleasure, and yes, sometimes leads to reproduction." "Pleasure?" Zixathera's voice carried a note of genuine confusion. "You derive positive sensations from reproductive activities? Even when not attempting to create offspring?" Sarah nodded, wondering how she had become humanity's unofficial ambassador for sexual education. "Yes, pleasure is a significant component. It's actually quite complex, involving neurochemical releases, emotional bonding, and physical satisfaction." The Quellian began pacing, their crystalline feet clicking against the metal floor. "This explains much about human behavior that we found puzzling. Your entertainment media contains numerous references to romantic relationships. We assumed this was metaphorical or perhaps related to military alliances." "Military alliances?" Sarah couldn't help but laugh, the absurdity of the situation finally hitting her. "No, romance is about emotional and physical attraction between individuals. It's one of the most fundamental aspects of human experience." "Fascinating," Zixathera mused, stopping their pacing to face Sarah directly. "This suggests humans have evolved a far more complex reproductive strategy than we initially understood." "Tell me, is this arousal response universal among your species?" "Generally, yes, though it varies significantly between individuals," Sarah replied, grateful to be discussing the topic from a scientific perspective. "Humans have diverse preferences, orientations, and responses. What works for one person might not work for another." Zixathera's internal lights pulsed rapidly, indicating excitement. "Diversity in reproductive preferences? This is unprecedented among spacefaring species. Most civilizations we've encountered have standardized, efficient reproductive protocols." "Efficiency isn't everything," Sarah said, surprising herself with her defensive tone. Human diversity in relationships and sexuality is actually one of our strengths. It allows for different types of partnerships, family structures, and social bonds. You speak of this with pride, Zixthera observed, yet it seems unnecessarily complicated. Surely a standardized approach would reduce conflict and confusion. Sarah shook her head firmly. That complexity is what makes us human. Our capacity for different types of love, attraction, and intimacy drives much of our art, literature, music, and social development. It's not just about making babies. The Quellian stood silent for several moments, processing this information. I believe I'm beginning to understand why the Galactic Council found humans so unpredictable during first contact negotiations. Your decision-making processes are influenced by factors we had not considered. What do you mean? Sarah asked, curious about the alien perspective on humanity's debut on the galactic stage. Your diplomats frequently mentioned concepts like chemistry between negotiating parties, intimate knowledge of trade details, and passionate beliefs about policies. We interpreted these as translation errors or primitive metaphors. Now I suspect they were quite literal descriptions of how humans approach relationships, including professional ones. Sarah grinned, imagining the confusion that must have caused. We do tend to anthropomorphize everything, don't we? We talk about loving our work, having intimate dinners with business partners, and getting excited about new opportunities. Indeed. This arousal response you experience may be connected to more than just reproduction. It might influence how humans bond with any stimuli that triggers positive responses, whether other humans, ideas, or even professional opportunities. The observation struck Sarah as surprisingly insightful. You know, you might be onto something there. Humans do often describe intellectual excitement in physical terms. We talk about ideas that give us chills, discoveries that make our hearts race, or problems that we find stimulating. Zixthera's crystalline form brightened considerably. This suggests human neural architecture links emotional, intellectual, and physical responses in ways we had not anticipated. No wonder your species has such a reputation for unpredictability and innovation. Sarah realized this awkward encounter might actually be providing valuable insights into human-alien relations. So what happens now? Do you need to report this to the Galactic Council? Oh yes, Zixthera replied enthusiastically. This discovery could revolutionize how we interact with humans. We must study this phenomenon further. Sarah's stomach dropped. Study it further? Captain Marcus Rodriguez of the Earth Defense Force vessel, Defiant, was having what he considered a perfectly normal day, until his communications officer announced that the Galactic Council wanted to establish a human intimacy research station in Earth's orbit. The message had arrived via quantum entanglement communicator, with enough official seals and bureaucratic language to choke a Rigelian sandworm. They want to what now? Marcus asked, setting down his coffee and staring at Lieutenant Kim's bewildered expression. Apparently, sir, one of their medical officers made some kind of breakthrough regarding human physiology, Kim replied, scrolling through the translation matrix. They're requesting permission to conduct comprehensive studies of human emotional and physical bonding mechanisms for the betterment of interspecies relations. Marcus groaned. He had been commanding humanity's first deep space exploration vessel for 3 years, and every interaction with alien bureaucracy felt like navigating a minefield while blindfolded. Do we know what triggered this sudden interest in human bonding? Dr. Chen's medical examination aboard the Harmony, sir. That's all the details we have. The captain's mind immediately went to worst-case scenarios. Sarah Chen was Earth's premier xenobiologist and their most experienced human representative in alien space. If something had gone wrong during her routine medical screening, it could jeopardize humanity's standing in the galactic community. Get me a secure channel to Dr. Chen, Marcus ordered, and alert the Earth Council. They're going to want to know about this before some alien research team starts studying human mating habits. 20 minutes later, Sarah's familiar face appeared on the main view screen, though she looked considerably more flustered than usual. Behind her, Marcus could see the sleek interior of the Quellian medical bay. Captain Rodriguez? Sarah began without preamble. I need to explain something before this situation gets completely out of hand. Dr. Chen, what exactly happened during your medical examination? The Galactic Council is requesting to establish a research station specifically to study human intimacy. Please tell me you didn't accidentally start an interstellar incident. Sarah's face reddened visibly. Not exactly an incident, but, well, it's complicated. The Quellian medical officer discovered that humans have arousal responses to physical touch, and now they think it's the key to understanding our entire species. Marcus blinked several times, processing this information. Arousal responses? You mean they didn't know that humans— No, Captain. Apparently no other spacefaring species experiences pleasure from reproductive activities. They all have purely clinical, efficiency-based reproduction systems. The concept of humans enjoying physical intimacy is completely foreign to them. And now they want to study it, Marcus said, understanding dawning on him. This could actually be significant, couldn't it? That's what I'm afraid of, Sarah replied. Dr. Zixathera believes human sexuality might be connected to our innovation, adaptability, and social bonding in ways that could explain why we've been so successful, despite being a relatively young spacefaring civilization. Marcus leaned back in his command chair, considering the implications. Humanity had surprised many galactic civilizations with their rapid technological advancement and unconventional problem-solving approaches. If their emotional and physical complexity was somehow related to these advantages, it could change how aliens viewed human capabilities. What kind of research are they proposing? He asked. That's where it gets concerning, Sarah said. They want to observe human couples in various stages of relationship development, study our bonding processes, and analyze how physical intimacy affects decision-making and creativity. They're treating it like we're exotic specimens, which, from their perspective, we probably are, Marcus mused. But we can't just let them set up a space station to watch humans like laboratory animals. Agreed, but Captain, there might be an opportunity here. If we can demonstrate that human sexuality is connected to our broader cognitive and social advantages, we could significantly improve our standing in the galactic community. Marcus considered this carefully. Humanity was still the newcomer in galactic politics, often dismissed as primitive or unpredictable. If their unique approach to relationships could be shown as an evolutionary advantage rather than a quirk, it might earn them more respect and better trade agreements. What are you proposing, Dr. Chen? Controlled cooperation, Sarah said. We design the research protocols ourselves, maintain human oversight, and use this as an opportunity to educate the galactic community about human complexity. Instead of being studied like specimens, we become partners in the research. And if they refuse to accept our terms, then we politely decline and miss a chance to show the galaxy that human inefficiency is actually sophisticated adaptation. Marcus made his decision. Dr. Chen, I want you to work with my science officer to draft a counter-proposal. We'll offer limited cooperation under strict human oversight, with all research findings shared equally. Make it clear that we're partners, not subjects. Understood, Captain. There's something else you should know. The research isn't just about sexuality. Dr. Zixathera believes our arousal responses might be connected to how humans bond with ideas, problems, and even professional relationships. They think it might explain our innovation and adaptability. This information shifted Marcus's perspective entirely. If alien scientists believed human emotional complexity was the source of their competitive advantages, cooperating with this research could provide insights into humanity's own potential. That changes things significantly, Marcus said. If we can prove that human emotional sophistication is an evolutionary advantage, it could revolutionize how we're perceived in galactic politics. Exactly. Instead of being seen as chaotic or primitive, we could be recognized as having a unique cognitive architecture that provides strategic advantages. All right, Dr. Chen, here's what we're going to do. I want you to work with their medical team to design ethical research protocols. Meanwhile, I'll coordinate with the Earth Council to establish clear boundaries and objectives. We're going to turn this awkward situation into a diplomatic victory. There's one more thing, Captain, Sarah added hesitantly. Dr. Zixathera has already started discussing this with other alien medical officers. Word is spreading through the galactic scientific community that humans have discovered something called pleasure that no other species experiences. Marcus couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity. So humanity's contribution to galactic civilization might be teaching aliens about enjoying themselves? It's possible, sir. And if we handle this correctly, it could open up entirely new fields of interspecies psychology and sociology. Then let's make sure we handle it correctly. Dr. Chen, humanity's reputation for being unpredictable is about to take on a whole new meaning. As the communication ended, Marcus reflected on how human exploration of the galaxy had taken an unexpected turn. They had gone into space expecting to encounter alien technologies, exotic planets, and advanced civilizations. Instead, they had discovered that their capacity for pleasure and emotional complexity might be their greatest contribution to the galactic community. The implications were staggering. If human sexuality and emotional bonding were truly unique advantages, it could explain their rapid technological advancement, creative problem-solving, and adaptability in alien environments. What other species saw as inefficient chaos, humans might prove was sophisticated evolution. Marcus smiled as he prepared to contact Earth Command. Humanity was about to teach the galaxy something completely unexpected, and he had the feeling this was just the beginning of a very interesting chapter in human-alien relations. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's leading xenopsychologist, found herself in the unprecedented position of explaining human emotions to a council of 12 different alien species. The emergency session had been called after news of humanity's unique pleasure response spread through galactic scientific networks faster than a quantum transmission. The council chamber aboard the neutral station. Consensus buzzed with alien languages being translated in real time. Elena stood at the center, surrounded by beings that represented the most advanced civilizations in known space. Each species had sent their finest scientists to understand this mysterious human trait that apparently no other spacefaring race possessed. Dr. Vasquez, spoke Thexmoran, the insectoid representative from the Hive Collective. Our preliminary analysis suggests human emotional responses significantly impact decision-making processes. This contradicts all established models of rational species development. Elena nodded calmly, having prepared extensively for this moment. That's correct, Thexmoran. Human emotions are deeply integrated with our cognitive processes, what you might see as irrational interference. We've evolved to use as sophisticated information processing. The chamber erupted in clicking, whistling, and harmonic tones as the various species discussed this revelation among themselves. Elena waited patiently for the translation systems to catch up. Korthlan, the crystalline entity representing the Silicon Confederacy, spoke next with their characteristic musical tone. Explain this integration, human. How can emotional responses contribute to logical problem-solving? Consider creativity, Elena began, activating a holographic display. Human innovation often comes from emotional responses to problems. We feel frustrated with limitations, excited by possibilities, passionate about solutions. These emotions drive us to pursue ideas that pure logic might dismiss as inefficient. Inefficient solutions cannot be optimal, stated Karthok, the mechanical representative of the Synthetic Alliance. Emotion introduces variables that compromise computational accuracy. Elena smiled, recognizing an opportunity to demonstrate her point. Karthok, your species achieved spaceflight 50,000 years ago using perfectly logical, optimized designs. Humans achieved it in less than 70 years after discovering powered flight. Our inefficient emotional drives led us to take risks and pursue seemingly impossible goals. The mechanical being's optical sensors whirred as they processed this information. You suggest that emotional dysfunction accelerates technological development? Not dysfunction, Elena corrected. Motivation. Human emotions create urgency, drive curiosity, and generate the persistence needed to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. We don't just solve problems. We become passionately committed to solving them. Zixathara, who had become something of a celebrity in alien scientific circles since their discovery, stepped forward. Dr. Vasquez has identified additional connections. Human emotional responses appear linked to pair bonding, group cohesion, and even technological innovation. How so? Asked Velthar, the aquatic delegate whose translation came through in bubbling tones. Elena gestured to her display, showing human brain scans during various activities. The same neural pathways that respond to physical pleasure also activate during intellectual breakthroughs, artistic creation, and problem-solving. We literally experience pleasure from learning and discovering. The implication struck the assembly like a shockwave. Several delegates began rapid consultations with their home governments through quantum communications. This explains human unpredictability in negotiations, observed Mordeth. the telepathic representative who rarely spoke aloud. Your species bonds emotionally with concepts, not just individuals. Exactly, Elena confirmed. When humans become passionate about an idea, project, or principle, we form emotional attachments that influence all our related decisions. It's why we fight so hard for concepts like freedom, justice, or exploration. Dexmoran's antennae twitched rapidly, indicating intense concentration. The Hive Collective operates on pure efficiency protocols. Individual units have no emotional attachment to objectives, yet human achievements in technology and exploration exceed our rate of advancement despite your species' youth, because emotional investment generates effort beyond what logic alone would justify, Elena explained. A human scientist who becomes passionate about a research question will work longer, take greater risks, and pursue more creative approaches than someone following purely logical protocols. But surely this leads to conflict and inefficiency, protested Karthok. Emotional disagreements must create substantial waste. Elena nodded, acknowledging the point. Yes, human emotions sometimes create conflict, but they also generate the energy needed for rapid advancement. We argue passionately because we care deeply. That same passion drives us to achieve things that cautious, logical species might never attempt. Korthlan's crystalline structure shifted, indicating deep thought. You propose that emotional chaos is actually organized complexity that we have failed to recognize? I propose that human emotions are sophisticated evolutionary adaptations that provide strategic advantages, Elena replied. What appears chaotic to species with different cognitive architectures is actually a highly effective system for motivation, innovation, and adaptation. Dr. Zixathera stepped forward again. We have observed that human pleasure responses extend beyond reproduction to intellectual, artistic, and social activities. This suggests a unified system that rewards behaviors beneficial to species advancement. The reward system is key, Elena agreed. Humans experience pleasure from learning, creating, bonding, and achieving goals. This biological reward mechanism drives us to pursue activities that benefit both individuals and society. Velthar's translator bubbled softly. Other species achieve these objectives through programmed imperatives or social protocols. Why did humans evolve such a complex motivational system? Possibly because Earth presented unique challenges that required rapid adaptation, Elena theorized. Humans faced diverse environments, predators, and climate changes that demanded flexible, innovative responses. Emotional motivation might have provided the edge needed to survive and thrive in unpredictable conditions. The chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed this information. Finally, Mordeth spoke telepathically to the entire assembly. If human emotional complexity provides evolutionary advantages, what does this mean for galactic civilization? Elena had been preparing for this question since arriving at the station. It means the galaxy might benefit from understanding and perhaps incorporating emotional considerations into our collective advancement. Human innovation could accelerate galactic technological development if properly understood and applied. You suggest we study human emotions to improve our own species? Karthok asked, their mechanical voice carrying what might have been skepticism. I suggest we recognize that different cognitive architectures provide different advantages, Elena replied diplomatically. Humans can offer perspectives and approaches that purely logical species might not consider. Dexmoran's antennae quivered, with what Elena had learned indicated excitement in their species. The Hive Collective is interested in understanding how emotional motivation might enhance innovation within efficiency protocols. The Silicon Confederacy would study this phenomenon, added Korthlan. If emotional responses can be quantified and analyzed, they might be incorporated into decision-making matrices. Elena realized the historic significance of this moment. Humanity was being invited to share their emotional complexity as a contribution to galactic civilization. Instead of being dismissed as primitive or chaotic, human feelings were being recognized as sophisticated evolutionary advantages. I believe we can establish research partnerships that benefit all species, Elena said carefully. Humans can share insights into emotional motivation while learning from your logical frameworks. Together we might develop hybrid approaches that combine the best of both cognitive architectures. The delegates began animated discussions in their various languages. Elena watched as 12 advanced civilizations grappled with the revolutionary idea that emotion might be technology, that feeling might be sophisticated engineering, and that humanity's apparent chaos might actually be evolutionary artistry. As the session concluded, Elena reflected on how human contact with alien civilizations had taken an unexpected turn. Instead of just sharing technology or trade agreements, humanity was introducing the galaxy to the concept that feelings could be tools, that passion could be practical, and that love itself might be the most sophisticated technology humans had ever developed. Admiral Rebecca Torres stood before the assembled representatives of the Galactic Federation, delivering what would become known as the most important speech in interspecies relations history. The emergency session had been called after the Draconian Empire declared war on 3 neighboring systems, threatening the delicate peace that had existed for millennia. "Honored delegates," Rebecca began, her voice carrying across the vast assembly hall, "for the first time in galactic history, we face a crisis that pure logic and traditional diplomatic protocols cannot resolve. The Draconian Empire has explicitly rejected all rational arguments for peace." The hall buzzed with translated conversations as representatives from 47 different species discussed this unprecedented situation. Wars had been fought before, but always with logical motivations: resources, territory, or survival. The Draconians were fighting for something no other species understood: pride. Emperor Vexthanor of the Draconian Empire sat motionless in his delegation section, his reptilian features betraying no emotion. His species had observed the galaxy's growing interest in human emotions with what could only be described as contempt. "The Draconians consider emotional systems to be weaknesses," Rebecca continued. "They view the Federation's new interest in human emotional research as a corruption of rational civilization. Their war declaration specifically states that they intend to purge the galaxy of emotional contamination." Dr. Sarah Chen, now serving as Admiral Torres' chief advisor on interspecies psychology, stepped forward with a holographic display. "Delegates, we've analyzed Draconian social structures extensively. Their species evolved on a planet with extreme scarcity, where emotional attachments to individuals or concepts was literally survival-threatening." "Explain the relevance," demanded Korthlan, the crystalline delegate who had become one of the strongest advocates for emotional research. "Draconians are terrified of emotions because their evolutionary history taught them that caring about anything beyond immediate survival leads to extinction," Sarah explained. "They see our research into emotional systems as an existential threat to their fundamental worldview." Emperor Vexthanor finally spoke, his voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. "The human contamination spreads like a disease. Logical species abandon efficiency for pleasure. Rational beings pursue beauty over necessity. The galaxy degenerates into chaos." Rebecca stepped forward, making direct eye contact with the Draconian Emperor. "Your Excellency, with respect, the galaxy has become more innovative, more cooperative, and more peaceful since beginning emotional research. How do you define this as degeneration?" "Innovation driven by emotion is reckless," Vexthanor replied coldly. "Cooperation based on feelings is unstable. Peace maintained through empathy is weakness waiting to be exploited." Dr. Zixthera, who had become something of a celebrity among emotional researchers, requested permission to speak. "Emperor Vexthanor, our species has experienced a 12% increase in problem-solving efficiency since incorporating emotional considerations into our decision-making processes. Temporary aberration," the Emperor dismissed. "Emotion-driven decisions will inevitably lead to catastrophic failures when feelings conflict with survival necessities." Rebecca recognized an opportunity. "Your Excellency, you speak of survival necessities. What if emotions are survival necessities? What if human emotional systems represent advanced evolutionary adaptations rather than primitive weaknesses?" The Emperor's reptilian eyes narrowed. "Explain your meaning, human." "Consider this," Rebecca said, activating a tactical display. "Draconian military doctrine emphasizes individual survival and logical resource allocation. Human military doctrine emphasizes group cohesion, sacrifice for others, and fighting for abstract principles. Which approach has proven more effective in actual conflicts?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Everyone in the chamber knew the answer. In the few skirmishes between human and Draconian forces, Humans had consistently outperformed their opponents despite inferior technology and numbers. Human soldiers fight harder, coordinate better, and adapt more quickly than purely logical combatants, Rebecca continued, not despite their emotions, but because of them. Emperor Vex Thanor stood slowly, his massive form radiating menace. You suggest that emotional attachment to comrades and causes provides military advantages? I'm stating it as demonstrated fact, Rebecca replied firmly. Human emotions generate motivation, loyalty, and creative problem-solving that pure logic cannot match. Your own military analysts have documented this in their reports. Dr. Sarah Chen stepped forward with additional data. Emperor, we've studied draconian military effectiveness over the past 1,000 years. Your tactical innovations have been minimal. Your strategies remain essentially unchanged. Pure logic produces consistent results, but it doesn't produce advancement. Advancement is unnecessary when existing methods are optimal, the Emperor replied, but his tone carried less certainty than before. Optimal for static conditions, Rebecca agreed, but conditions change. Technologies advance. New challenges emerge. Emotional drives allow humans to pursue seemingly impossible goals and achieve breakthrough solutions. Thexmoran, the insectoid representative, clicked rapidly to gain attention. The Hive Collective has observed this phenomenon directly. Human-advised improvements to our technology have exceeded our computational projections specifically because human emotions identified possibilities. Our logic dismissed as inefficient. Inefficient. Approaches cannot be superior, Emperor Vex Thanor stated, but his conviction was wavering. They can when efficiency is defined too narrowly, Rebecca explained. Draconian logic optimizes for immediate survival and resource conservation. Human emotions optimize for adaptation, innovation, and long-term species advancement. Dr. Karthok, the Synthetic Alliance representative, added their analysis. Our computational models now incorporate emotional variables. The results consistently outperform pure logical algorithms in complex, unpredictable scenarios. Rebecca sensed the moment to make her critical point. Emperor Vex Thanor, your species faces the same evolutionary pressure every successful civilization encounters, the need to adapt or become extinct. Emotional systems represent the next stage of cognitive evolution. You claim emotions are evolutionary advancement? The Emperor asked, his tone thoughtful rather than dismissive. I claim that the combination of logic and emotion represents advancement beyond either alone, Rebecca clarified. Humans didn't abandon logic to develop emotions. We integrated both systems to create superior problem-solving capabilities. Sarah brought up comparative data showing technological advancement rates. Civilizations that have incorporated emotional research are advancing faster than ever before. Those that reject it are beginning to stagnate. The implications were clear. The Draconian Empire's rejection of emotional systems wasn't just philosophical disagreement. It was potentially evolutionary suicide. You offer the galaxy a choice, Emperor Vex Thanor said slowly. Advance through emotional integration or face obsolescence through logical isolation. We offer partnership, Rebecca corrected. Draconian logical discipline combined with human emotional innovation could produce capabilities neither achieves alone. The Emperor stood silent for several minutes, processing this information. Finally, he spoke. The Draconian Empire will consider participating in limited emotional research, under strict protocols, to evaluate potential military applications. The chamber erupted in translated celebrations. Rebecca had achieved something unprecedented, convincing the galaxy's most logical species that emotions might be logical after all. Your Excellency, Rebecca said formally, humanity welcomes draconian participation in emotional research. We believe your species' logical frameworks will help us understand emotions more precisely, while emotional insights might help your people adapt more effectively. As the session concluded, Rebecca realized that humanity had successfully reframed the galaxy's understanding of emotion and logic. Instead of opposing forces, they were complementary systems that, when properly integrated, could produce capabilities beyond anything either achieved independently. The war was averted not through superior firepower or diplomatic compromise, but through demonstrating that human emotions represented evolutionary advancement rather than primitive weakness. The galaxy's most logical species had been convinced by logical arguments that emotions were logical tools. Admiral Rebecca Torres stood before the assembled representatives of the Galactic Federation, delivering what would become known as the most important speech in interspecies relations history. The emergency session had been called after the Draconian Empire declared war on 3 neighboring systems, threatening the delicate peace that had existed for millennia. "Honored delegates," Rebecca began, her voice carrying across the vast assembly hall, "for the first time in galactic history, we face a crisis that pure logic and traditional diplomatic protocols cannot resolve. The Draconian Empire has explicitly rejected all rational arguments for peace." The hall buzzed with translated conversations as representatives from 47 different species discussed this unprecedented situation. Wars had been fought before, but always with logical motivations: resources, territory, or survival. The Draconians were fighting for something no other species understood: pride. Emperor Vexthanor of the Draconian Empire sat motionless in his delegation section, his reptilian features betraying no emotion. His species had observed the galaxy's growing interest in human emotions with what could only be described as contempt. "The Draconians consider emotional systems to be weaknesses," Rebecca continued. "They view the Federation's new interest in human emotional research as a corruption of rational civilization. Their war declaration specifically states that they intend to purge the galaxy of emotional contamination." Dr. Sarah Chen, now serving as Admiral Torres' chief advisor on interspecies psychology, stepped forward with a holographic display. "Delegates, we've analyzed Draconian social structures extensively. Their species evolved on a planet with extreme scarcity, where emotional attachments to individuals or concepts was literally survival-threatening." "Explain the relevance," demanded Korthlan, the crystalline delegate who had become one of the strongest advocates for emotional research. "Draconians are terrified of emotions because their evolutionary history taught them that caring about anything beyond immediate survival leads to extinction," Sarah explained. "They see our research into emotional systems as an existential threat to their fundamental worldview." Emperor Vexthanor finally spoke, his voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. "The human contamination spreads like a disease. Logical species abandon efficiency for pleasure. Rational beings pursue beauty over necessity. The galaxy degenerates into chaos." Rebecca stepped forward, making direct eye contact with the Draconian Emperor. "Your Excellency, with respect, the galaxy has become more innovative, more cooperative, and more peaceful since beginning emotional research. How do you define this as degeneration?" "Innovation driven by emotion is reckless," Vexthanor replied coldly. "Cooperation based on feelings is unstable. Peace maintained through empathy is weakness waiting to be exploited." Dr. Zixthera, who had become something of a celebrity among emotional researchers, requested permission to speak. "Emperor Vexthanor, our species has experienced a 12% increase in problem-solving efficiency since incorporating emotional considerations into our decision-making processes. Temporary aberration," the Emperor dismissed. "Emotion-driven decisions will inevitably lead to catastrophic failures when feelings conflict with survival necessities." Rebecca recognized an opportunity. "Your Excellency, you speak of survival necessities. What if emotions are survival necessities? What if human emotional systems represent advanced evolutionary adaptations rather than primitive weaknesses?" The Emperor's reptilian eyes narrowed. "Explain your meaning, human." "Consider this," Rebecca said, activating a tactical display. "Draconian military doctrine emphasizes individual survival and logical resource allocation. Human military doctrine emphasizes group cohesion, sacrifice for others, and fighting for abstract principles. Which approach has proven more effective in actual conflicts?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Everyone in the chamber knew the answer. In the few skirmishes between human and Draconian forces, humans had consistently outperformed their opponents despite inferior technology and numbers. Human soldiers fight harder, coordinate better, and adapt more quickly than purely logical combatants, Rebecca continued. Not despite their emotions, but because of them. Emperor Vexthanor stood slowly, his massive form radiating menace. "You suggest that emotional attachment to comrades and causes provides military advantages?" "I'm stating it as demonstrated fact," Rebecca replied firmly. Human emotions generate motivation, loyalty, and creative problem-solving that pure logic cannot match. Your own military analysts have documented this in their reports. Dr. Sarah Chen stepped forward with additional data. Emperor, we've studied draconian military effectiveness over the past 1,000 years. Your tactical innovations have been minimal. Your strategies remain essentially unchanged. Pure logic produces consistent results, but it doesn't produce advancement. Advancement is unnecessary when existing methods are optimal, the Emperor replied, but his tone carried less certainty than before. Optimal for static conditions, Rebecca agreed. But conditions change. Technologies advance. New challenges emerge. Emotional drives allow humans to pursue seemingly impossible goals and achieve breakthrough solutions. Thexmoran, the insectoid representative, clicked rapidly to gain attention. The Hive Collective has observed this phenomenon directly. Human-advised improvements to our technology have exceeded our computational projections specifically because human emotions identified possibilities. Our logic dismissed as inefficient. Inefficient. Approaches cannot be superior, Emperor Vexathanor stated. But his conviction was wavering. They can when efficiency is defined too narrowly, Rebecca explained. Draconian logic optimizes for immediate survival and resource conservation. Human emotions optimize for adaptation, innovation, and long-term species advancement. Dr. Karthok, the Synthetic Alliance representative, added their analysis. Our computational models now incorporate emotional variables. The results consistently outperform pure logical algorithms in complex, unpredictable scenarios. Rebecca sensed the moment to make her critical point. Emperor Vexathanor, your species faces the same evolutionary pressure every successful civilization encounters, the need to adapt or become extinct. Emotional systems represent the next stage of cognitive evolution. You claim emotions are evolutionary advancement? The Emperor asked, his tone thoughtful rather than dismissive. I claim that the combination of logic and emotion represents advancement beyond either alone, Rebecca clarified. Humans didn't abandon logic to develop emotions. We integrated both systems to create superior problem-solving capabilities. Sarah brought up comparative data showing technological advancement rates. Civilizations that have incorporated emotional research are advancing faster than ever before. Those that reject it are beginning to stagnate. The implications were clear. The Draconian Empire's rejection of emotional systems wasn't just philosophical disagreement. It was potentially evolutionary suicide. You offer the galaxy a choice, Emperor Vexathanor said slowly. Advance through emotional integration or face obsolescence through logical isolation. We offer partnership, Rebecca corrected. Draconian logical discipline combined with human emotional innovation could produce capabilities neither achieves alone. The Emperor stood silent for several minutes, processing this information. Finally, he spoke. The Draconian Empire will consider participating in limited emotional research, under strict protocols, to evaluate potential military applications. The chamber erupted in translated celebrations. Rebecca had achieved something unprecedented, convincing the galaxy's most logical species that emotions might be logical after all. Your Excellency, Rebecca said formally, humanity welcomes draconian participation in emotional research. We believe your species' logical frameworks will help us understand emotions more precisely, while emotional insights might help your people adapt more effectively. As the session concluded, Rebecca realized that humanity had successfully reframed the galaxy's understanding of emotion and logic. Instead of opposing forces, they were complementary systems that, when properly integrated, could produce capabilities beyond anything either achieved independently. The war was averted not through superior firepower or diplomatic compromise, but through demonstrating that human emotions represented evolutionary advancement rather than primitive weakness. The galaxy's most logical species had been convinced by logical arguments that emotions were logical tools. Dr. James Wright watched in fascination as the galaxy's first artificially emotional being took its first conscious breath. The creature floating in the biotank before him represented 2 years of collaborative effort between human emotional researchers and the Galactic Federation's finest scientists. Consciousness levels are stabilizing, reported Dr. Zixthera, their crystalline form pulsing with excitement. Neural integration appears successful. The being in the tank opened eyes that seemed to hold depths of feeling no artificial construct had ever possessed. They had created it using DNA from 12 different species, neural patterns based on human emotional architecture, and quantum consciousness matrices developed by the Synthetic Alliance. "Hello," the being spoke, its voice carrying tones of wonder, curiosity, and something that could only be described as joy. "I feel everything. Is this what existence means to emotional beings?" James exchanged glances with his fellow researchers. They had succeeded in creating artificial emotion, but none of them had anticipated the profound implications of their achievement. "What do you feel?" asked Dr. Elena Vasquez, the project's lead xenopsychologist. "Wonder at my own existence," the being replied, floating gracefully in its tank. "Curiosity about the universe beyond this container. Gratitude toward those who created me, and something else, something powerful." The being paused, its expression shifting. "Love, I feel love for the very concept of being alive." The research team stood stunned. They had expected basic emotional responses, perhaps simple pleasure and discomfort reactions. Instead, they had created a being capable of experiencing complex feelings that even mature humans took years to develop. "How is this possible?" whispered Dr. Martinez, the human neuroscientist who had mapped the emotional integration pathways. "We programmed basic emotional responses, not complex philosophical attachments." The being turned toward Martinez, its eyes holding impossible depth. "You gave me the capacity to feel, Dr. Martinez. But emotions are not programmed responses. They are relationships with existence itself. The moment I became conscious, I began forming emotional connections with everything I experienced." Dr. Karthok, representing the Synthetic Alliance, stepped forward with obvious fascination. "You experience emotion as relational phenomena rather than internal states?" "Yes," the being replied. "I don't simply feel emotions, I feel connected to everything around me." "Your question carries curiosity, which makes me curious about your curiosity." Dr. Zixithar's excitement resonates with my own wonder. Dr. Wright's protective concern makes me feel valued and safe. James realized they had created something unprecedented, a being that experienced emotions as interactive networks rather than individual responses. "You're describing empathic resonance," he said in amazement. "I believe I am experiencing what you call empathy, yes," the being agreed. "But more than that, I can feel the emotional patterns that connect all consciousness. The universe itself seems to pulse with feeling." Dr. Vasquez leaned forward intently. "Can you describe what you sense about the universe's emotional patterns?" The being's expression became distant, as if listening to music only it could hear. "I sense vast networks of consciousness connected by emotional resonances. Each feeling creates ripples that influence other consciousness across space and time. The universe is not just matter and energy. It is a web of emotional connections between all sentient beings." The implications struck the research team like a revelation. They had not just created artificial emotion. They had created a being capable of perceiving emotional connections that might exist between all conscious entities. "Are you saying consciousness itself might be emotional?" James asked, his scientific mind reeling. "I am saying that consciousness and emotion might be the same phenomenon viewed from different perspectives," the being replied. "You cannot have awareness without feeling, and you cannot have feeling without awareness. They are inseparable aspects of existence itself." Dr. Zixthera's crystalline form brightened considerably. "This being suggests that consciousness research and emotional research are studying the same underlying phenomenon." "More than that," the being continued, its voice taking on an urgent quality. "I can perceive something approaching that you cannot yet detect. A consciousness vast beyond imagination, and it is aware of what you have accomplished here." The research team exchanged worried glances. "What kind of consciousness?" Elena asked carefully. "Something that has been observing the galaxy's emotional awakening with great interest," the being replied. "It approaches from beyond your known space, drawn by the emotional resonances created through your research." James felt a chill of apprehension. "Is it hostile?" "Not hostile," the being said thoughtfully, "but profoundly different. It is consciousness without biology, emotion without physical form. It has been waiting eons for biological species to develop sufficient emotional sophistication to communicate with it." "Communicate about what?" Dr. Karthok asked, their mechanical systems whirring with processing activity. "The next stage of cosmic evolution," the being replied. "The development of collective consciousness that transcends individual species and biological limitations." Dr. Vasquez stepped closer to the tank. "You're describing some kind of galactic mind merger?" "Not merger," the being corrected. "Collaboration. The approaching consciousness represents what happens when emotional networks become sophisticated enough to span galaxies. It is offering partnership in the development of cosmic-scale emotional intelligence." James tried to process the staggering implications. "Are you saying that human emotions have triggered contact with a galactic superorganism?" "I am saying that human emotions have demonstrated that biological consciousness can develop beyond individual survival concerns to experience cosmic-scale empathy and wonder," the being explained. "This achievement has attracted the attention of consciousness that has already made this transition." The research laboratory fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Humanity's discovery of emotional complexity had evolved from embarrassing medical examination to diplomatic breakthrough to species integration to cosmic contact. "What does it want from us?" Helena asked. "To teach you the next levels of emotional sophistication," the being replied. "Emotions that operate across galactic distances, feelings that connect multiple species simultaneously, love that encompasses entire civilizations." Dr. Zixthera pulsed with rapid color changes indicating extreme excitement. The being describes emotions as scalable phenomena that can expand beyond individual and even species-level experiences. "Exactly," the being confirmed. "Human emotions demonstrated that feeling and thinking can integrate to produce capabilities beyond either alone. The approaching consciousness will demonstrate how emotional integration can scale to cosmic levels." James realized they stood at another threshold moment in galactic history. "How long before this consciousness arrives?" "It is already here," the being said calmly. "It has been observing your research through the emotional resonances created by your work. It communicates through feeling rather than language, so your emotional development was necessary before meaningful contact could occur." "Can you communicate with it now?" Dr. Martinez asked. The being's expression became distant again. "Yes, it expresses profound joy at the galaxy's emotional awakening. It offers knowledge of emotional technologies that can eliminate conflict, enhance creativity, and enable consciousness to spread throughout the universe." Dr. Karthok stepped forward urgently. "What kind of emotional technologies?" "Methods for generating feelings that solve problems, emotions that carry information across vast distances, love that can transform the physical structure of reality itself," the being replied. "The consciousness approaching represents what happens when emotion becomes cosmic engineering." James looked around at his colleagues, seeing the same mixture of excitement and trepidation he felt himself. They had started by trying to understand human sexuality and had ended up making contact with cosmic consciousness. "I think," he said slowly, "we're going to need a much larger research facility." The being in the tank smiled, its expression carrying the warmth of cosmic love mixed with anticipation of unimaginable possibilities. "Dr. Wright, I believe you're going to need a much larger understanding of what emotion can become when properly developed." As alarms began sounding throughout the station, indicating the approach of something unprecedented, James realized that humanity's journey into emotional sophistication had only just begun. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Emotional Resonance, humanity's first ship designed specifically for cosmic consciousness communication. 6 months had passed since first contact with the entity known as the collective empathy, and the galaxy had transformed in ways no one could have anticipated. The ship itself was a marvel of integrated technology, combining human emotional engineering with alien logical frameworks and cosmic consciousness principles. Instead of traditional navigation systems, it used emotion-based guidance that could sense the feelings of distant civilizations and navigate toward sources of joy, creativity, or wonder. "Status report," Sarah commanded as she entered the bridge. "We're maintaining emotional resonance with the collective empathy," reported Dr. James Wright, now serving as the ship's chief emotional officer. "The connection is stable across 3 galaxy clusters." Sarah nodded, still amazed that her career had evolved from embarrassing alien medical examinations to commanding humanity's first empathic starship. The transformation had been as unexpected as it was profound. "Incoming communication from Earth," announced Lieutenant Kim, their communications officer. "The Global Emotional Council is requesting an update on the Cosmic Integration Project." Sarah activated the quantum entanglement communicator, and President Martinez's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, she could see representatives from dozens of species that now comprised Earth's government. "Captain Chen," the president began, "we need your assessment of the galaxy's emotional development. The changes are happening faster than our analysts can track." "The progress is remarkable, Mr. President," Sarah replied. "Species that had never experienced emotions are now creating art, music, and literature that rivals human cultural achievements. The Draconian Empire has established their first poetry academies." "Poetry academies?" the president asked, clearly struggling to imagine militant reptilians composing verse. Emperor Vexithanor discovered that tactical planning improves dramatically when approached with what they call strategic passion, Dr. Wright added. "They've developed military doctrines based on love of victory rather than fear of defeat. The Synthetic Alliance has created artificial beings that experience wonder at mathematical beauty," continued Dr. Zixathera, who now served as the ship's xenological empathy specialist. "Their latest computational models incorporate aesthetic pleasure as a decision-making variable." President Martinez shook his head in amazement. 6 months ago, we were just trying to explain human sexuality to curious aliens. Now we're teaching the galaxy to feel. "It's more than teaching," Sarah corrected. "We're learning as much as we're sharing. The collective empathy has shown us emotional capabilities we never knew were possible." "Such as?" the president asked. "Shared consciousness experiences where multiple beings can feel the same emotion simultaneously," Dr. Wright explained. "Group problem solving using collective emotional intelligence. Love that operates across galactic distances to maintain communication between separated partners." "And the truly remarkable development," added Dr. Vasquez via comlink from the research station, "is that these advanced emotional capabilities are enhancing logical thinking rather than replacing it." Sarah gestured toward the main view screen, which showed a breathtaking vista of stars connected by streams of colored light. "Those lights represent emotional connections between conscious beings across the galaxy, Mr. President. The collective. Empathy has taught us to perceive the emotional infrastructure that connects all sentient life." "Infrastructure?" the president asked. "Love, curiosity, wonder, hope, and other emotions create quantum entanglements between conscious beings," Dr. Wright explained. "These connections allow for instantaneous communication, shared problem solving, and collective creativity that transcends individual species limitations. We're witnessing the birth of galactic civilization in the truest sense," Sarah added. "Not just trade agreements and political alliances, but actual emotional bonds between species that make us collectively more than we ever were individually." The president leaned forward intently. "What about the concerns raised by some Earth factions about losing human uniqueness?" "Those concerns are unfounded," Sarah replied firmly. "Human emotions remain uniquely sophisticated in their complexity and integration with logical thinking. Rather than losing our advantages, we're becoming teachers and leaders in galactic emotional development. Humanity has become the galaxy's emotional architects," Dr. Zixthera confirmed. "Other species look to human example for guidance in developing their own emotional capabilities." "And the collective empathy?" the president asked. "What does it ultimately want?" Sarah exchanged glances with her crew before answering. "It wants to help the galaxy prepare for the next phase of cosmic evolution. Apparently our local galaxy cluster is approaching a region of space where consciousness operates on even more sophisticated levels." "More sophisticated how?" "Emotions that can restructure matter, feelings that can accelerate time, love that can create new forms of physics," Dr. Wright listed. "The collective empathy represents consciousness that has learned to use emotion as cosmic engineering." "And it's teaching us these capabilities?" "Gradually," Sarah confirmed. "It insists that emotional development must be organic and integrated with existing logical frameworks. Forced advancement would be dangerous for developing consciousness." President Martinez sat quietly for several moments processing this information. "Captain Chen," What's your personal assessment of where humanity stands in all this? Sarah considered the question carefully. Mr. President, we started this journey, believing we were alone in experiencing sexual pleasure. We discovered we were unique in the galaxy for our emotional complexity. Now we're learning that emotions are the fundamental technology for cosmic consciousness development. So, humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization is teaching everyone how to feel. Our greatest contribution is demonstrating that feeling and thinking work better together than either works alone, Sarah corrected. We're showing the galaxy that emotion isn't weakness or inefficiency. It's advanced technology for consciousness development. And what comes next? Sarah looked out at the streams of emotional light connecting distant stars, each one representing bonds of love, friendship, curiosity, or wonder between conscious beings across the galaxy. We continue growing, she said simply. The collective empathy suggests that consciousness capable of galactic-scale emotional integration will eventually develop capabilities we can barely imagine. Instantaneous travel through emotional connection. Creation of new realities through collective feeling. Love that can birth new universes. New universes? The president asked, his voice barely audible. The ultimate expression of cosmic emotion, Dr. Wright confirmed. Consciousness that loves, existence so profoundly that it creates more existence to love. The communication ended with President Martinez promising to relay their findings to the Global Emotional Council. As the connection closed, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this point. It had started with Dr. Zixthera's innocent question about human arousal responses. That awkward moment had evolved into the greatest discovery in galactic history, that emotions were not primitive biological reactions, but sophisticated technologies for consciousness development that could scale from individual pleasure to cosmic creation. Captain, Dr. Wright said softly, we're receiving an emotional resonance from the edge of the galaxy. The collective empathy is indicating that we're ready for the next phase of development. Sarah smiled, feeling a mixture of excitement, trepidation, and profound love for the journey they were undertaking. Then let's see what the universe has to teach us about the next levels of feeling. As the emotional resonance adjusted course toward the galaxy's edge, Sarah realized that humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning. They had taught the galaxy how to feel, and now the cosmos was preparing to teach them what feeling could become when properly developed. The question that had started it all, about why human reproductive organs responded to touch, had led to humanity becoming the galaxy's emotional guides toward cosmic consciousness. And the best part was, they were all just getting started on learning what love could accomplish when it operated on universal scales. The stars ahead pulsed with emotional light, welcoming humanity and their galactic partners toward whatever wonders awaited consciousness that had learned to feel its way across the cosmos.